Hello, guys. Welcome to a Pick a Side live stream. We're here after the finale of NBA All-Star Weekend 2025. Is there anything on your guys' mind after watching this weekend? Like any strong thoughts about this weekend?
No, how are you guys? No Riv here, no Drew here. We're just getting right
Yeah,
into it.
yeah.
That'll eventually happen once we get into the flow of things. But yes, as Dels mentioned,
Okay.
Drew is at Mountain Creek. Riv is watching his son right now, so he couldn't be on the live stream. But John and Dels are here. And I don't know if you got a chance to look at the thumbnail, Dels, but it's very fitting. You were on the cover with Mac McClung and Tyler Hero, both players who came out victorious and won trophies in their respective contests. Yes. So, and any strong thoughts that you guys had, watching this All-Star weekend transpire?
Great All-Star weekend. I mean, just look at the thumbnail. I think that says really all you got to know about how this weekend was, right, John?
I enjoyed it. I thought a lot of people are a little bit unhappy with some parts, but the dunk contest I enjoyed. The three-point contest I always love, and the All-Star game itself was weird this year, a little bit quirky. I mean, it feels like the format changes every other year, but even that I still enjoy too. So all things considered, I thought it was a good weekend.
I really enjoyed.
By the way, John, you put this together?
No, I didn't.
Jess did.
Jess, shout out to Jess.
Yes.
Shout out to Jess.
Draymond Green had some strong thoughts throughout this weekend. He made a bold prediction that the Warriors are winning the championship. That's one of the Draymond statements he made. He also made a statement about how the rising stars should not be on the court with the all-star players, and that made the rounds. And the only reason why the rising stars are there is because they don't try.
Yeah.
I feel like the rising stars, like, you would think that the all-stars would be so offended that the rising stars were on the same court as them that they would just want to run them off. But it felt like another game where they didn't try at all.
I thought that was the most competitive game. The Rising Stars, and they played the OGs, right? They played like Steph and them, right? I thought that was the most competitive game. Honestly, I really thought this format to 40 was doing a pretty good job up until the TNT shout out to the four guys, just absolute glaze fest that went on, which they're legends. Like, shout out to them. They deserve a moment, maybe after the game, because up until that point, I thought the first game was mildly entertaining, more entertaining than normal. Though the second game with the Rising Stars was very entertaining because yeah, exactly. At the end, that game got pretty close, and the OGs were trying to be a little fancy, hit the 3 points to go up and to win. Eventually, they hit, I think, like a dunk or something. It was 39, then they just hit another bucket. But up until that point, I thought it was pretty competitive because the biggest issue with the All-Star game has been effort, and a reason why effort could kind of be manipulated is if you give some sort of sense of urgency. When you have 4 quarters and you know the game's going to go to 200 points, the first 3.5 quarters don't really matter. And if that doesn't matter, then one team could get up by 20 points. And then all of a sudden, the last, half quarter of the fourth quarter doesn't matter either. So the fact that it only went to 40 points, I thought made the players lock in sooner outside of the final game. The final game was terrible. And it's a shame because it was the final. It was for the championship. And they started off 11-1. They had a timeout. It wasn't even like the 15-point timeout. Just Charles or whoever called the timeout. And then it was like 20 minutes of commercials and performances and TNT. And I'm just like, really? Like, we actually got like a somewhat decent product for the All-Star. Right. It felt like it kind of got ruined. But I thought outside of that, the 3-point contest was super entertaining. I feel like that's been the best contest over these last couple of years, especially that final round with Tyler Hero. And who was it? Garland, or I forgot the other person. It was Garland, Hero. Who was the third?
I'll take a look.
Buddy Hield.
Yeah. Buddy Hield could have, like, he was one shot away, I believe, and he could have ended up winning. I thought that was entertaining. And
he went cold.
Awesome. The dunk contest I thought was awesome. Mac McClung and Stephon Castle both had amazing dunks. And I hope that Mac McClung winning 3 in a row does actually move the needle for some NBA players, because I think the NBA players should be looking at it like it's us against Mac McClung, whether that's Ja Morant, Zach LaVine, Giannis, whoever it is. It should feel like this is an NBA thing. Even though Mac is part of the NBA and he got like 7 minutes this year, I feel like it should be part of, we want to show that we're the best dunkers, not this G Leaguer kind of, dunk specialist. but it was phenomenal. Going over the car, all of his dunks were 50s. He was, to me, outside especially the 100K that the guy won. Outside of that, I thought Mac McClung was the highlight of the weekend.
I mean, Joel, do you want to hit on that?
I mean, man, okay, I have a lot of thoughts on the All-Star weekend. To start off with the games, they only started trying against the Rising Stars when they were messing around for the entire time. And they're like, oh, okay, they're actually kind of close to us. And there's a chance that they could beat us and embarrass us. Because if the Rising Stars won that game, oh, you best believe everybody would be talking about how bad of a product All-Star weekend is, because, I mean, you're letting the Rising Stars beat you. And honestly, if somebody were to watch the All-Star weekend for the first time, they would watch that game. I don't think they would be able to tell the difference between the All-Stars and the Rising Stars if they didn't have it across their jersey and it be so obvious, because they didn't look like a major difference. They all didn't play at all. The last game, you're right, Dels. I mean, they went into this whole ceremony for inside the NBA after like they scored 11 points. It wasn't like, I was like, is this the halftime or whatever? Like, what the hell is this? So that was one thing. You know, Steph Curry, I thought, set a bad precedent with his half-court shot that went in. That was an amazing shot, because right after, Trae Young tried one of his own and he fucking missed. And it's like, oh, this is a regular Atlanta Hawks game if you watch Trae Young. He just does this all the time. This isn't even an all-star thing. But for the dunk contest, what was funny as hell to me was the intros for each player. Stephon Castle, Vince Carter was like, Stephon Castle, they are already calling him Area 51. And who he reminds me of? Jason Kidd. They like had the most unrealistic comparisons. I think who were the All-Star contestants? It was McClung, Stephon Castle,
Andre
Uzelis, and then who else?
Andre.
Andre Jackson Jr. His comparison was the funniest to me, because Vince Carter was like, he is Andre Iguodala.
That was crazy.
And I was just crazy. Like, what?
Right.
What? He averaged like 2 points.
Yeah, that is absolutely wild. I will say, for the dunk contest, a lot of people are giving Mac flack. I saw especially, I think it was one tweet by O'Connor, he highlighted that Stephon should have won. I thought Stephon put together a great show. He could have won. The one dunk he had in the up and under between the legs, that was insane. I thought I put him in a good spot to have the chance to win. But the people that are like kind of dismissing Mac McClung as just a G leaguer and not a real NBA player, well, for one, you should not be blaming Mac McClung that no NBA star wants to compete, and he's out there putting on a show, and he saved the dunk contest the last couple of years by making it interesting. You think back to 3 years ago in the contest where I forgot who else it was, but it was Jalen Green and a couple other young players who needed 3-4 attempts and eventually ran out, and that's how bad the dunk contest was, to the point where we weren't even getting a competitive product. It wasn't even interesting. Mac McClung has come in and made it interesting in the last couple of years. And on top of that, people have given him a lot of flack for being a two-way player. A two-way player is still an NBA player. And this is someone who in the G League's been averaging 25 points the last 2 years. I mean, I think it's really unfair how people kind of dismiss Mac when he's the one making the not only All-Star weekend, but the dunk contest relevant and interesting. I think in a vacuum, this is what allows a guy like John Morant to say to himself, maybe I do want to compete in this. When you watch him jump over, not the end of the hood, but the actual car itself for a dunk like that, I mean, that's the type of thing that I really think can kind of get some other NBA stars to really get into it. And I think shout out to him and Stephon especially, because those two really did set a better precedent. And hopefully by next year, we have a couple of other stars to make it entertaining, because when I grew up watching the NBA, it felt a lot different, where you have all these young stars and all these established players making a better product. So I'm hoping that people stop disrespecting him, because quite frankly, I mean, he needs a lot more respect, I think.
Yeah, the presentation, it was just, everything was a bit over the top. Everything was a bit extra. Like, I understand you need to sell commercial spots and you have a job to do. And I'm not going to lie, like NBA fans and analysts, we do always say, like, we miss how the game used to feel, how the game used to be presented. But you can't sit there and not laugh when you have Vince Carter and, Ernie and Kenny and all of these guys reading off a teleprompter, and they're going back and reading and rewatching all of Vince Carter's dunks. They're like, first up from the Chicago Bulls, Matas Buzelis. And you're like, okay, well, probably half of NBA fans who watch casually don't even know who this guy is. Not to just like Matas, but it's just the reality. There's just not a lot of guys that are at any sort of upper echelon. Like Stephon Castle was a pretty big name for them to pull. Like, he has been one of the best rookies in the NBA. I think he might be the favorite right now to win Rookie of the Year. But Mac McClung, man, shout out to him, because this is 3 years in a row now that he's had dunk after dunk. The creativity is always great, because even like, not to take away from Stephon Castle, because he was fucking amazing, but like, we have seen most of those dunks in one form or another. We have never seen basically all of Mac McClung's dunks. So the fact that he comes every single year and has something new and unique, and he almost always gets it on the first try, and he always dunks with authority too, right? Like, there's sometimes where you could kind of like roll the ball in, but he is making sure that his head is at the rim. He's getting both hands on the rim. He's dunking with authority, so that brings even a more oomph to it. And I thought he was the star of the show. He was fantastic. But I do hope next year we could get at least just one other all-star, like one other guy that takes this personally, who is an extraordinary dunker like Ja Morant, who takes it personal. Like, I want to show that I could beat Mac McClung on a one-on-one, because what I've seen so far these last couple of years, Stephon Castle has been the closest guy to even be able to dethrone him.
There's just like no pride in dunking anymore. I feel like nobody takes pride in being able to come up with creative dunks. And you mentioned Mataz Buzelis, right? Like, he's a rookie, you know, he's in a dunk contest. This should be a good moment for him, just for personal exposure. But I feel like a lot of these players that enter the dunk contest, there's 4 contestants. All of the time, there's only 2 that really do anything worth noting. There's always half of them whiff, and Buzelis completely whiffed, to where you're questioning if he's even practicing these dunks. Like, I don't think he's practicing. I know that it's very hard, and it's hard to get it on the first try. Mac McClung did it on all of his first tries. And you're not about to tell me it's because Mac McClung can just wake up and do this. It's because he's practicing it. And if you know you're going to be in the dunk contest, you got to practice these dunks to the point that once you get to the dunk contest, you're not missing the dunk. Like, Buzelis missed all of his dunks, and then Andre Jackson missed like every single one. And he's like, forget it. I just got to get like a simple rim grazer dunk just so I could get some points on the board. It's just a lack of seriousness around it. I think they should scrap the dunk contest. Mac McClung, I think they should scrap it. This is
the best dunk contest we had in a couple of years.
It was great because of Mac McClung. But Mac McClung won 3 in a row, and he already said that he doesn't think he's going to come back next year unless they really offer him, like, you know, they really are begging him to go back. But there's nobody that wants to do it. Nobody at all. And yes, there were good dunks. Like, I'm not going to lie, that this dunk contest was better than years past. But what is the direction of the dunk contest overall? It feels very underwhelming, and I'm not believing in all these all-stars coming out saying they want to dunk
every year.
Exactly. They do say it every year. I feel like Ja Morant has said this for multiple years now, and they don't go out and do it. So I don't know. I just feel like the dunk contest, it doesn't have the same allure to it. For me, the 3-point contest is easily the highlight of the weekend.
I would agree with that. Now, we have gotten some all-stars. We got Jaylen Brown a couple of years ago, and
it was terrible.
People hated Jaylen Brown.
Still an all-star. And there are a lot of players, a lot of younger guys, as we saw this year, Stephon, where even if a guy like Ja or a guy like Giannis isn't doing it next year, you can say that the product has been better enough to the point where maybe 1 or 2 more do. And that could make it just a better product moving forward. As for the NBA 3-point contest, that's the best part because it's most consistent. There's not really those lows. Maybe if a guy like Norman Powell doesn't perform as well as you would hope. But of course, there's going to be that guy like Buddy Hield who goes and has 31 points in his first round, or Darius Garland who puts on a show, and Tyler Hero who wins it. But I'd say the biggest question with All-Star Weekend is what format are you going to choose? I like playing 40 points, but the question is, and it's not even a question, it's quite odd when you have your rising stars going up against your all-stars, because there doesn't really seem to be that clarity or that organization. There's not really that idea. And I think the best structure was East versus West. But to me, I would say that one idea I saw flowing around is a way in which they can maybe integrate players and put their status of an all-star on the line potentially. There was a tweet that went viral, someone saying that all the biggest all-star snubs who become replacements, guys this year like maybe a Trae Young or Jalen Williams, that they get their own team and they go up against the all-stars and they compete, and maybe the winner of that game gets to kind of earn that title of an all-star. So now the player's playing for that reputation and that accolade. And if you don't win, you don't get it. And I think that obviously it kind of construes NBA history because it's not traditional, but it is a way in which that you can get players to compete, because a lot of guys would like to have that nod opposed to not having it. So I would say that it's really not scrapping the dunk contest. I think is crazy because it is a good product. It's gotten better, and I expect it to continue improving. But to me, it's really just how do you make the All-Star game more interesting? Because as Dell's highlighted, the final I tuned out when it was 11-1, and you have I thought the ceremony and the honoring of inside the NBA crew was great, but after that, it was almost like the game wasn't even on because the NBA players were just like kind of messing around, and I think that's really the biggest problem here.
Let me ask you guys a question and give me your honest opinion reaction. The NBA, a couple months from now, they release a PR statement. Next year in the All-Star game, we are not doing the dunk contest anymore. What's your first reaction to that?
I'm upset.
You're
upset. Yes.
You're upset.
I would be upset.
I think that's dumb.
You would be upset, John.
The thing is,
how can you get rid of the dunk contest?
It's on the players. Everything All-Star weekend is on the players. The dunk contest could be fun if All-Stars and these high flyers want to do it. The All-Star game would be entertaining if these guys took it seriously, or at least like a regular season game, and they don't waste the first, 40 minutes of the 48-minute game on just screwing around and doing alley-oops and three-point shots and all of that. It's on the players. It's difficult because everyone shits on Adam Silver, and I think he deserves part of the blame, especially with all the ceremonial and performances and whatnot. But the actual on-court product, he only has so much control over. If no one wants to do the dunk contest, and the biggest names he can pull outside of Mac McClung are a couple of rookies and Andre Jackson, what can you really blame him for? If these guys don't go out there and take the All-Star game seriously, he can't force them to take it seriously. The best he can do is really what I think they showed is to have somewhat of a lower target score. But even still, since the target score is so low, the game's over so quick. There's a reason why I need to do these celebrations, because if there was a regular commercial break in between, this thing would have been over in 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. You have 3 games up to 40. These are NBA players, and half the shots they're taking are three-pointers. This game would have been over so quick. So maybe it's making the target score a bit higher. Maybe it's doing something. I know they've tried things at the end of each quarter, like it gets donated to charity, but that has never really made it feel like players care about it, right? If you win a quarter, you get $25,000 your charity. The other team wins the quarter, they get their donation. But that didn't really move the needle either. It's hard. I don't think there is no format that is going to be perfect unless the players actually care. I do feel like this was the first time that we showed maybe 50% effort instead of 10% effort, but it wasn't as good as it should be.
There's just no way that players that get paid $40 million per year care that much about $100,000 getting donated somewhere, or them winning a couple of $100,000, because they just have so much that it's not worth it to them with the injury risk involved and associated with it. I think that, listen, and face value, it sounds like a crazy idea, but if they replace it with something that's better, I don't think it would be that bad. I think the dunk contest has been a staple in NBA history, and it would be great if it just continues to be great. This year, Mac McClung's dunks were legitimately incredible. I thought he came out with so much creativity, and I do think that he should have won over Stephon Castle. Stephon Castle had some good dunks, but Mac McClung, clearly, he just had over-the-top dunks. So this year's product was good, but I'm speaking of really 10-plus years of the dunk contest product that we've been watching that has been underwhelming, and 2 of the 4 contestants didn't even meet the timer and couldn't even get their dunks off. That's how bad this has become. I also wanted to talk about the skills challenge and Chris Paul and Wembanyama cheating. They're trying to beat the time. I don't know. I just think these games don't have rules in place that are structured enough so people all know what they're doing, because it's okay, listen, you have 5 shots to make this mid-range shot. You have to beat this timer. And then somebody as savvy as Chris Paul is saying, okay, let's just miss all of them quickly and let's just beat everybody's time. I don't know. I think there needs there needs to be more energy and life into the All-Star weekend as a whole. And then the All-Star game, of course, it's just so bad. It's just so bad. The target score, it ends so quickly. You have the rising stars playing there now. Anthony Edwards sat out. LeBron James sat out last minute. I mean, nobody really cares about it. So I think that's the biggest problem.
Şengün only played 13 seconds too, bro. I mean, how can they allow that?
Who?
Şengün.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if he was there, he would have cared.
That is the problem, though. You look at, especially when I grew up watching the NBA, Kobe, Kevin Garnett, Dwight Howard, a lot of those stars from 15, 20 years ago really did put on, even Allen Iverson's another example. They really did care about the game to an extent where it was interesting. You had some fun moments. This year, it's a good example of LeBron last minute sitting out to heal. Same goes for Ant-Man, as you highlighted. And even Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. It feels like a lot of these players, dating back the last 10 years almost, since 2016, even 2020 was the one year they really did put a lot of emphasis. They really cared. They haven't really given a shit. And that's what it comes down to. If LeBron doesn't care and Steph is kind of dicking around, then no one else is going to take it seriously. And until those guys do, until that next generation of stars really do actually try and put that like excitement and enthusiasm to the game, you're going to see it be the same way, unfortunately. So I think that's the disappointing part. Because,
Yeah.
LeBron goes 100% on this. Everyone else is going to follow and at least put 75% in.
No, I'm with you, John. And the fact that LeBron sits out last minute, Ant sits out last minute, and there's no replacements, that also sucks too. Like there's players who are getting bonuses, who have, things in their contract that they get paid for if they become all-stars. And the fact that we could have had at least two more in here, right, with LeBron and Ant-Man both having injuries that we don't know about until 10 minutes before the game starts. Those are two other players that could have made it, that, should have made it, because there were so many guys that got snubbed. The only other thing that I would love to see, they could get rid of the skills competition. I didn't even watch it this year. I saw the highlight of Wemby and Chris Paul. I didn't watch it. They could get rid of that. A one-on-one contest would be awesome. I don't know why players are afraid. Kyrie, I think it was Kyrie got an interview saying that they're not afraid actually to be embarrassed, but there's something there that players have for years, it feels like, been very adamantly against it. WNBA just did it. It went really well. I would love the NBA to do guards versus guards, forwards versus forwards, bigs versus bigs. One-on-one competitions would be awesome. Seeing LeBron versus KD, seeing Kyrie versus Steph Curry, Embiid versus Jokic, that could easily replace the dunk contest, what the dunk contest was, as the number one thing to see during All-Star Weekend. Because I feel like if you're going one-on-one, you're much more likely to try. Right, you're much more likely to try to defend the guy, because when you're playing 5-on-5, you can let him go by you, and it's like, okay, we have another 30 points to score. One-on-one, game to 5, game to 11, whatever it might be, that would be awesome to see.
Absolutely. And you look around the NBA, there's a clip that went viral a few days ago of a role player like Cam Reddish cooking a Lakers shoot around one-on-one. There's so much talent in the NBA, especially in that setting. A guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, a total role player who's maybe not the biggest name, could put on a show. So if you get star players and those marquee names who have way more variety in their game, it would really be a product that it would probably be the best thing in All-Star Weekend. And on top of that, if you can incorporate one player from every single team and you have it be like a first to 3 or a first to 5, that's where it really could become interesting, because then every fan base can see one of their favorite players.
Anything is better than what they currently have that goes on Sunday. If it's a one-on-one between all the all-stars at their positions, or if it's a 3-on-3, kind of like how the Big Three does, and they're playing, and you just make different teams of that, like East versus West. And I don't know, there's just so many theories out there floating. But I think the issue is that we have to come up with theories, and the NBA still hasn't fixed this. But I think the way that us that follow the league closely feel, it feels like every year with All-Star Weekend now, is kind of like how the casual NBA fan feels around the game as a whole. Mm-hmm. And like I couldn't let that just slip away from my mind when I thought about it. It's like, okay, is this All-Star Weekend that the NBA puts forth every year, is it just a microcosm of how people feel about the NBA as a whole? Because it very much has that reputation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue people have with the NBA, there's a few, but number one is just guys who are injured, this load management thing, that's a big issue. And we saw it on full display. Like the fact that LeBron James, I understand LeBron probably did everything he could to play in this game, because I think the All-Star game matters to LeBron. But to sit out this game when, as you mentioned, Joel, that's a talking point around the NBA. Another issue that they have is just each individual game doesn't really matter. You have 82 games in a season. So if you miss a random game on a Tuesday, it doesn't really matter. And that was the same thing here, right? You played a 40. I mean, I'll be honest, like it was more, intense this year, but in all of these games, the first like 10, 20 points, no one was really trying, right? So that's another issue that they have. And as much as I love Kevin Hart and as much as I love the inside the NBA, they're a whole nother issue, right? Where I feel like the fact that inside the NBA is like the most mainstream form of covering the NBA, covering sports in general, outside of like, your first takes in the morning and just talk shows, they're a whole separate issue, because the first game they were talking about Bol. Like I didn't know, there must be some inside joke there with Shaq that I'm just missing between him and Bol. Maybe if you guys know, you can inform me. But they were talking about that for legitimately like half of the first game. And sure, do you have to break down what's actually happening on the court of an all-star game? I don't think you have to go that in depth, but at least tell me something that's going to be more entertaining than whatever the fuck you're talking about Bol, because it was just a lot of nonsense. And then before the game, you had all the Draymond comments that was just more negativity towards the game than anything. So I agree with you, Joel. I feel like a lot of the issues a casual fan has about the NBA, if you watch the All-Star game, you just feel like, yeah, I was right. It's your conviction, be like all of the issues that I have, because let's be honest, if you're a casual NBA fan, up until this point, maybe you've caught 5 games. That's like a nationally televised TNT. You watched Celtics Knicks a couple weeks ago, but you're not sitting here and watching 50 games up in this point, and you're probably not going to watch again until the playoffs start.
And Draymond was on inside the NBA talking about how the product now is worse and it's accidental basketball. He's like, yeah, I listened to this clip that Kobe was speaking in this clip, and he was talking about accidental basketball. And I was like, oh, it's a perfect explanation to what's going on right now. There are some games that you get up for as a defender and they're doing things that are unique, but for the most part, it's just accidental. So I don't know. Sunday felt like an entire ceremony for like inside the NBA. Kevin Hart, oh, these are the 4 horsemen. Appreciate them. They're so great.
They were coming back.
They are coming back. I don't know why it felt like such a goodbye.
Yeah. Okay.
From what I know, it's their last All-Star weekend that they're covering.
Okay. So who's the All-Star weekend going to go to next? Is it not going to be on TNT anymore?
Yes, great question. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I'm assuming.
Network. And the inside joke, shout out to one of the comments by Jeremiah Smith. I think I can kind of back this up. I remember this. It's basically Shaq saying that we've seen Wemby before, and that was Bol. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some super chats. Jason Martinez goes, I don't know if anyone agrees, but the game to 40 made it feel like a pickup game. It definitely made it look like there was more effort. Effort is also what made Mac McClung a huge draw for the dunk contest. Wish we get more in 2026.
Yeah, no, it definitely had more effort, and McClung was awesome, man. Mac McClung was awesome.
B Swag goes, what's been y'all's fave format in the past years? East versus West, USA versus World Draft, target scores. I think it's East versus West.
Yeah,
I think that's always going to be the best motto. But if the players don't care, it really doesn't matter what format they do.
Yeah. If you could get East versus West, but they care like they did today, and again, we're using care pretty loosely because they had fucking zero care, and today I felt like there was like maybe 40% care. That would be the best format.
Santos goes, Mac McClung can't get a contract, but Paul George can have one. Shaking my head.
Would you rather have Mac McClung on a minimum or Paul George?
Mac McClung.
Paul George ain't been healthy.
B Swag, Tatum really been robbed of 2 MVPs now.
He should have won MVP. He had, I think, 1 more point than Curry. He was more efficient. I
forgot, John. You're trying to save face on this Paul George thing, because you made some comments comparing him to an NBA champion in the offseason.
Yeah, it actually has nothing to do with that whatsoever. That was Indiana Paul George. On top of that, I will say that Paul George not being healthy in a pretty lost season for Philadelphia, where they've been bad with him being on the floor regardless. I think, he's the butt of jokes. He's playing poorly, but at the same time, they're also giving him some pretty serious injections just so he can be out there when they're 10 games under 500. So I think, well, sometimes, he being the butt of the joke can be funny. I do think that he gets really picked on way too much because he shouldn't even really be playing it right now.
Yeah, right. Maybe just sit him and worry about next year.
Yeah, I mean, Paul George was me next year, 35.
Yeah, sounds about right.
He is an old man.
Yeah, it's a lot of money
when it comes to NBA terms. But that's gonna do it for us. Recapping NBA All-Star Weekend. If you guys had to give your final rating 1 out of 10 of what this weekend was, what would you give it?
6.
Yeah, I was 6.4.
Okay.
I'll give it a 5.
Wow.
Some nice moments, some not so memorable moments. Oh, maybe it'll bump up to a 7. But the All-Star Weekend as a whole is just so that even Kendrick can't save this. LiAngelo Ball, I mean, is that top 5 All-Star Weekend highlight moments?
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Mr. Beast being fucking weird as hell. Mr. Beast was super. I mean, the concept was cool.
Loved it.
But Mr. Beast was just awkward. It was weird.
A little bit.
Oh,
He's out
man.
of his element. But hey, it was honestly like probably like the second best moment if any of that shot at the buzzer.
But again,
I'm
like
not
that was
so
during.
hyped.
Was that in between the first and second game? Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, can we do that before the game? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like these 3 games, can we just like make them efficient? Let's watch.
Yeah.
Guess not.
Disappointing. But hey, that's going to do it for us. We're going to record a podcast tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, fellas. We're going to see you guys next time. Make sure to drop a like on the stream and tune into the episode and any episodes we have dropped up to this point. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.